Welcome to the Journeyman Cave, a podcast where we meet and chat with some of boxing's most seasoned road warriors, hosted by Mark Shakespeare and Chris Scarfe.
Welcome back to the Journeyman Cave, everybody. This is round 41. With me, as always, my very good friend, Mr. Mark Shakespeare. How are we doing?
Always good, buddy. Yourself?
Yeah, always good. Wayne Windle this week. I'm sure you've mentioned him a few times before. Have we been after him for a while, or?
Well, he's been on the radar for a while,
Right.
and I've been meaning to contact him, and when I did, he jumped at the chance to come on the show, really. And it was nice to get somebody on. Wayne were a little bit before our time.
Yeah.
He's a bit older than us, like. Not much older, but, and it was nice to, to get somebody from a bit before our time, really, in. And you're a proper road warrior, Wayne.
Yeah.
And he's travelled around, and obviously you'll find out in this interview he's had some good fights. He liked to come and do his own little, little shake in the ring and stuff like that, a bit of the character. And yeah, it was a pleasure to meet him, mate, wasn't it?
It was good. Should probably mention, and I'm hoping it won't affect your listening pleasure too much, but for some reason that very day during recording, somebody else in the building decided they were doing a bit of DIY. So at some points, you may hear a little bit of hammering or banging. Like I said, I think it's not too imposing. So we just wanted to give you a heads up about that because, I know it can be annoying sometimes, but I don't think it's overly,
Well, to be honest, I think, from what I heard, you're hammering nails in with a toffee hammer.
It was strange, wasn't it?
Yeah.
But it's just us, innit? Wherever we go, even at home, not just on us travels, something has to happen. So, yeah, apologies to Wayne for that. But he was a brilliant guest. And so I think we should, let's crack on and go and speak to Wayne.
Let's get him in, mate. It's good to see you, Wayne, mate.
Yeah, good to see you too. We're both here, yeah. Over these years I've been away from boxing games, so it'd be nice to have a chat with you.
A reminisce,
yeah.
Well, I'm going to ask you this question then, mate. Was it a shock when you got that message off me?
Probably so, yeah, it were, because, like I said, I've stepped away from boxing, really. Love it still, like I've always have done, but kind of stepped away and it seemed like another lifetime.
Well, listen, mate, when I got in contact, I was chuffed when you got back to me, and you've got a lot of stories to be told, mate, and it's like you said, 45 fights, 15 wins, 27 losses, and 3 draws. Yeah. There's some stories in there, mate, that need to be told.
That's a third, a wins.
Yeah,
That's
I think it's a few more draws. I thought it might be 5 draws on there, and they were all wins. Yeah, you're going to say that, aren't you? But always usually somebody else's backyard with draws.
Could we call you a gatekeeper then, Wayne, do you think? Would you call yourself a gatekeeper or
Not too sure. In
what way? Because I couldn't class you as a journeyman with that record.
I don't know, but I were like probably middle at road. I were a journeyman in such respect because I'd take fight at dropper and that. I mean, I've fought at 9 o'clock at night. I spoke to you earlier. Late on a dinner show, gone to watch dinner show, gone to watch, I think, one of other lads from Jim who were on, and then I've actually borrowed somebody's boots, borrowed somebody's shorts, got a gum shield, melted gum shield down in cup, and then boxed, and at 9:30 at night. So I'm a journeyman. I've took fights short notice, and that was generally how a lot of my career went. You get a phone call, Windle, I've got you a fight. And that's how it used to be with
That's
Brendan.
got a Brendan Ingle voice.
That was a Brendan Ingle, who was a fantastic manager, trainer and stuff. And yeah, so you get a call and where are we, Brendan? And how much am I on? Where are we? You're down in London or we're down in such and such. And that was it. And that's how it went for most of my career.
Well, that's why I wanted to get you on, Wayne, because, I mean, that's the only thing I'm on is on Facebook. So if a fighter out on Facebook, I can't really get in touch with him. Yeah. That's when Scarfe comes into his own. I'm looking forward to getting into this career, Wayne, because there's some tasty fights in here and some quality journeymen you've been in with there, mate.
Yeah, definitely.
And I were only messaging Mr. Mickey Mulcahy yesterday.
Yeah.
And he says, pass the best on, mate. We had 3 wars, didn't we, with this guy?
Yeah. I mean, he was my first pro fight. I fought Mick, and he'd had a handful of fights by then, and he was a good kid. Mick, a strong, good boxer, and I think we did 6 rounds that first fight with him, and I knew I'd been in with him, and then we ended up having 2 more fights.
Yeah, and when you had a fight with him as well, it was strange because you had obviously a pro debut against Mick, didn't you?
Yeah.
Then you had a middle of your road halfway through your career,
yeah,
and you got revenge on him,
yeah,
if you want to call it that. And then towards the back end again, we had the trilogy, didn't we?
Yeah,
and it ended up 2-1 to Mick, didn't it?
And it did actually 2-1. We finished off, but that was the fight I took late on at night. Was against Mick.
What it?
In the show where, I don't know if it were Mick's opponent. I mean, Mick might be able to explain that to you better, but whether his opponent had pulled out that night, because it was myself who stepped in at short notice. And I remember that the promoter there, Nat Basso from Manchester, we agreed, and that were it. And before you know it, I were in with Mick. And probably one at best I've boxed, but I trained that day. I didn't know I were fighting. I'd gone across to watch somebody else. I can't remember, actually, we weren't sure. There were not many on that night anyway. It was a dinner show. And then next thing, I'd already boxed Mick and he'd beat me, so I was a bit on edge. But I got in there and I felt great, to be honest. And I think Mick had agreed that I felt great because he might have been surprised at time. And I did actually have him on canvas.
Did you?
Unfortunately for me, yeah, I did.
Oh.
I did, but
he didn't tell me that. He didn't tell me that.
Well,
he didn't tell me that.
He got his revenge in last one.
Before we delve into your career, then let's. You said you started when you were how old?
So I went down to Brendan's in 1970, between 78 and 79 when I started.
Wow.
Which is like.
How old were you then?
So I was 10-year-old
right
when I started.
We weren't born.
Just coming up for about.
We weren't born.
Were you not? No. So I was just coming up for 11.
I know we look it like, but no.
Yeah. So, and in them days when you were amateur, so I went straight down. I used to. My next door neighbour were Glyn Rhodes.
Wow.
Oh, I know you've had on.
Yeah.
So that's how I got into boxing.
Right.
So I've obviously listened to Glyn's podcast.
Did he mention you?
He never mentioned me, which is terrible.
Right.
Shocking.
Wait till I see that guy.
So you need to have a word with him. But
definitely,
no, I've not seen him for a few months. But so I were good friends with Glyn. Lived next door to his mum and his stepdad. And I knocked about with his brother, so his stepbrother Lee. So that was and we used to spar on back garden when we were kids. He were boxing at that time. I think Glyn's maybe 6 years older than me or something like that. Maybe in his 60s, 90s, 61 or something. So I started off training on back garden in their kitchen, and then went down to Brendan's, and he introduced me to him. And then took it from there, and then that's how it all kind of started. And 11, you had to be, I think, 11-year-old and 6 months to have your amateur fight.
Right.
And that's how old I was when I had my first amateur fight.
And it went on from there, mate.
And then went through there, yeah. I think I had about 40-odd amateur fights, and then I turned pro in 1988, I believe.
You were always destined to turn pro then? You always wanted to?
I think that was just where things went in Brendan's gym, because at that time... Yeah, amateurs and pros trained together in Brendan's, but that weren't actually allowed at that time, and he got banned for that. There was quite a bit of a story behind like how we got banned from training, and in them days, amateurs and pros never trained together. But it were always that you did that training as you were training with pros, so your natural progression were that it kind of suited you better than quick 3 rounds as an amateur. I think when you were amateur, like a 12, 13-year-old, you were doing 3 1.5 minutes. I mean, 1.5 minutes were just like quick. But we were training we were running, we were training for training a couple of times a day, 7 days a week. And that longer like rounds, the longer rounds, and it suited you better. So the 6 rounds when they come along and the 8 rounders were better for you so pro was like the way you went with it.
Most fighters we've had on here all said that the programme suited them better. Most fighters we have on.
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, when I boxed amateur, I was, at that time, I boxed twice in one night. which were unheard of now, didn't it? You never had it. But as an amateur boxing championships, fought at beginning at night and then fought at end at night. So won and lost.
I don't think that'd be allowed now, would it?
Which it won't be allowed now. But that were in day when, as an amateur, I think I won South Yorkshire Championships on a bye. I were actually South Yorkshire champion without even getting in ring.
No.
I love that.
Which is not bad, is it?
They'll never take that title off
You
though,
can't,
mate, will
can
they?
you? South Yorkshire champion without even getting in.
That's a beauty, that. They were all scared of Mr. Windle. They knew what we were going to do to him.
They were worried.
When you turned pro then, what's your ambitions from the start, if you had any?
Well, I always had in my mind, I thought it'd be great to win a British title, wouldn't it? You know, you see, and in that gym at that time when I were coming through, you'd got Errol Graham, Johnny Nelson come just a little bit later. I think I were about 14 when Johnny started in gym. You'd got Brian Anderson, British champion, weren't it? You've got a lot of great fighters in there. Glyn Rhodes, Mick Mills, Walter Clayton, Peter Bennett. The list goes on. Brendan used to just churn them out. That gym at that time were just
buzzing,
thriving with talent. It were literally, they were just fighters. Ronnie Rathbone. They were just fighters one after another that you could, bring through. They were fantastic, brilliant days. Brilliant.
Yeah, there was some, like it says, 80s and 90s when it were a gym that everybody knew, Brendan's gym. It were always, I bet you were never short on sparring, were you?
No. I mean, yeah, and you were getting in there, so you got Errol Graham just for British title, and then you're sparring with him.
Yeah.
And you were doing a lot of body sparring, so it were but you're getting gym, and it had to bring you on as a kid. I mean, looking up to somebody like Errol Graham at that time, do you know, and you think, I mean, these guys, Brian Anderson, goes on to fight Tony Simpson, didn't he? And we were British champion. And when you look at what you're around and how that's going to develop you as a young kid, and you've seen these, for me, they were superstars, weren't they? You know, when you're looking at them as a young kid.
And it gives you a boost as well, doesn't it, going forward?
Yeah.
You want to inspire to be like that.
Yeah, definitely.
And it brings you on.
Yeah, but I think you just went through motions. I never had no kind of ambition that we're going to be some sort of world champion. It's just that I just enjoyed being in gym. I enjoyed how it were at that time. It were a great time to be in that gym. Brendan were just another level. It were not only he didn't just teach you how to box, your manners, your please and thank you. He'd have you up in ring singing for your confidence. Do you know, all these things. I remember painting lines in gym, but it's always a big thing now. A lot of people have took that, Glyn's adapted it in his gym. So the circles for the footwork. So when you started at Brendan's, you had to do your footwork. That was your main thing, you know. He'd have you 6 months of doing your footwork. Come in.
Come in.
Told you, didn't I?
Well, I can pronounce now. There's somebody downstairs, haven't there, isn't there?
There's somebody putting paintings or shelves up.
He was very good in his footwork, though, wasn't he, Brendan?
Yeah, so he were name it game, weren't it? It and don't get it. About longevity of career, so he's, you know what I mean, it very tricky, very brilliant. But like I said, we painted them circles, we painted them lines, and then what you did is you spent 6 months or whatever every day in, day out, and you could do it with your eyes shut. I go around the circle. It was all about how your footwork, and that's what you relied on when you were in trouble, because it got you out of trouble.
It did.
It got me out of trouble quite a few times. Yeah.
But like you said, mate, I mean, we mentioned it earlier, 45 fights. Should be proud of that, Wayne. It's a good career you've had there.
Yeah.
Do you think you'd have liked to have that British title shot if you could go back?
Oh, I'd have snapped it up. Yeah. I never realised at the time how probably close could have been to that.
Yeah.
If I'd have just kind of stuck with it and just one or two, and that's when I look back, and it is with a bit of regret. It is, because I know that when I did put my mind to it, I know I could have achieved that bit better. I wouldn't have said I've been no world beater, and I'm not saying that. I'm not saying any different, and it's what ifs and stuff like that, because I know a lot of fighters, well, if this and if that would have been different, but looking back, yeah, I think I could have achieved a little bit better with it than what I did. But I'm happy with what I've come away with, and not only that, I come out at game with all my marbles. I think, you know what I mean. I've come out in it unscathed after 45 fights. sometimes I think my memory's not fantastic, but...
Listen, that's just part of...
Neither's mine, to be fair. So.
Oh, mine, mate. So I don't think that's something to do with your boxing, Wayne.
No.
You're looking well, mate.
Yeah.
So have we talked about, obviously, you started your career in Mick, didn't you, mate, as well? You didn't have the best start in your career, did you?
No.
I mean...
Had a terrible
obviously,
start.
yeah. I mean, that's not the way you want to start your career, obviously. I mean, after you fought Mick on your first time, you went in with David Pratt, and then you got stopped by Jeff Dobson, it says here.
Yeah. Well, I've got a great story for the Jeff Dobson one.
Yes.
So, Jeff Dobson, I think you were unbeaten at that time, Jeff.
Yeah.
You're a London kid.
It was a tough start to your career, you
yeah,
know. There were some good fights, then, you know.
they were, weren't they?
They didn't start you easy.
No, you were in amongst it, weren't you? You were up against it, should I say. But that fight with Jeff Dobson, funny story to that is that myself and Glyn Rhodes went down to that fight, and I think Glyn were on bill. I'm not too sure who Glyn fought that night. So I gets in with Jeff. It's a 6-rounder. It's at Croydon, Fairfield Hall. I still remember it. And it were 50-50 fight. Not much in it. He might have been edging it. Bit of an aggressor. And in 6th round, he catches me. Boom. And down I go. Take quite heavy. And he stopped fight in 6th round. I get up. I've actually got it on video. You see me take bow. Thank you for coming, as you do. I get out. I get changed, get ready, and then I go out into the crowd to watch rest at show. And I'm sat at the side of Glyn Rhodes. And I said to Glyn, and I go, when are we on? So I nudge him and say, when are we boxing? When are we on? And he says to me, he looked at me as enough to say,
yeah,
Wayne, you've just boxed. Oh. So I'd had concussion, so I didn't realise I'd boxed. So I'd got out, got changed, got ready, and then obviously gone out to watch rest at show. And John H. Tracy were actually sat one row in front of us.
Nice.
I remember that, yeah. I can remember he was sat a row in front of us. But that was it. But just shows you done it. So that's the other side of boxing. With
yeah, I mean, it must have hit the hard, mate.
Well, he must have done, yeah. I did go down quite heavy, yeah. It's happened to me twice in my career, that.
Has it?
Where I've had a bit of memory loss. I fought a kid called Steve Ferran. Steve Ferran, I boxed him in Preston, Guildhall. There's a bit of a story because it goes again, because Glyn were there, so he's my bogeyman, isn't he, Glyn? So wherever he is, I'm always getting
He's getting some bad rap on this podcast.
He is, isn't he? He is. He is, but unfortunately you were there, and he'll remember this night, because I got stopped by Steve Ferran, who were a good kid, Steve. And Glyn boxed him himself. Got a brother called Neil Ferran. Good amateurs they were, and they both turned pro. But he did the same. I got stopped in 3rd round.
Right.
By Steve. And then I remember in dressing room having my eye stitched. No, I don't remember, having my eye stitched. I remember going across the road in an after party where they had an hotel with drinks. And I just remember looking at myself, and I were actually in my suit. Right. So I'd got changed and I can't remember.
Right. Yeah.
So just... so that's a couple of times where that's happened.
You look back now and it must be quite scary. You think, bloody hell, I mean...
but that's just dangers of, like, that's the...
Oh, yeah.
With boxing, that's
you don't play boxing,
sometimes.
Mate. You don't play this sport, do you?
No.
At all. That's quite, crazy to hear that, to be honest, mate. But you're still in you're still looking well now, Wayne, so it's not been long-term damage.
No, thank
you sat here with us two idiots, mate, so you're all right.
No, it's not, no permanent damage. But
good lad.
I look back on it, we can laugh about it, can't we? Because I'm here and I can tell you them stories. So,
well, obviously, as you said when you mentioned them, we did laugh then. It wouldn't have been funny at the time if all that happened, but yeah, it is.
No.
They are funny now as you go back to that, thinking that, innit? But it just proves how dangerous
the sport is, innit? And can be, yeah.
But obviously, after the old concussion with Jeff Dobson, then, mate, we got your first draw at City Hall with John Ritchie. Should you have won that fight?
Yeah, because I believe referee that night were it Brian Anderson? I'm not too sure. Tony Green.
Right.
So the guys were actually around our gym, and I think it would been one of them, if in fairness, and I think they'd tell you now if they were here, but would to say that they've been a bit too fair, whereas don't want to seem to be a bit biased.
Yes.
and they'd give it a draw because they think it's so close, and the liaise with, they're down at the gym, they know Brendan, they're around, everybody knows they're around and part of the gym as what we were. So it seemed to be fair to get it a draw.
Yeah.
And I believe that I beat him that night, and so did a lot of other people. But by the by, it's gone, and it's done. But
it was nice to get off the mark, though, mate. Wasn't it? We out an L, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
In your fourth fight, mate. Yeah. And it did get better as it went on there. But the guy I'm going to have to mention next is Des Gargano, mate.
Yeah.
Back to back. What a warrior.
Well, you just so back in day like that, Des was the journeyman.
Yeah.
One of the best around.
Yeah.
Every time he turned up, he'd be at a show. And I mean, how many did he end up having?
A fair few,
he
mate.
did, over 180 or something like that. What is it more?
Easy.
And he was a great character. And he'd just turn up sometimes on his own, do you know what I mean? I had, believe it or not, he beat me. I beat him that first fight. But then we had a bit of a war, believe it or not, in one of the fights, and people couldn't believe it. And it were like we got crowd on the feet, and me and Des Gargano having a toe to toe.
Yeah,
it's like it's unheard of, isn't it? It's like both like kind of that level and journeyman and stuff. And but he were a great character. But yeah, and then he beat me.
Yeah. Well, I look at your record. I mean, I looked on BoxRec.
Yeah,
and I didn't know they did that back in the day, but. When he beat you, the scorecard said 58 and a half.
Yeah.
So did you get half a points then? How did they do
I think
that?
so. When it went round were close, would they go like 9.5, 10?
I don't know. They don't now. Obviously, I don't remember
It's
that.
a full point, isn't it?
Yeah.
So I think in them days you did have, if it were extremely close and you couldn't work between you, they either get it a draw or they get it your 9.5.
Yeah, so it said lost by, when he beat you, were 58 and a half.
So it just shows you half a point.
Did he have a nice fag then? He liked to smoke, didn't he, Des?
I did. So what you'd do is you'd see him at show, even if you're not boxed him and that, and you'd see him with cigarettes after he'd come out. You know what I mean? He'd have a drink, he'd have a pint, and he'd have a cigarette, and it were like you'd look at him and think, Des. Do you know, I couldn't imagine that I'd be smoking or I'd be drinking with boxing, and I don't know. So, but great character.
Yeah,
great character.
And he's got his son now, Curtis, who's around the game now as well, and he's keeping that legacy going in.
Yeah, I've seen that.
Yeah,
Curtis is doing well with he's got some fighters himself, like, so yeah.
Yeah, I think he's getting back on track now, so all the best to Curtis. But yeah, that's, people look at records and they think, that you want to be looking at people like Billy Schwer and that dark record, which we'll talk about later on. But, when I see people like Des Gargano on your record, that's who I want to talk about, mate. Obviously, we'll not be able to get him on the show, bless him. Don't make him like him anymore, do they, mate?
No, definitely not. But no, he kept a lot of shows going. So they're the fighters that kept a lot of the shows going around the country. People like Des, because short notice, like people pull out. There's all kinds of issues, isn't there? And Des, drop her a night, he'd be there. Brilliant. Yeah,
definitely. Not all heroes wear capes, mate, do they?
No.
At all. I mean, obviously, after that, he went in with... I put this one down here, because the record wasn't bad at the time. He went in with Noel Carroll, mate, and he lost on points.
See, Noel Carroll, and that were another one. He were a tough fighter, Noel. Yeah. I think that were an 8-rounder, that, as well.
That's one of the reasons why I wrote it down here.
I was same again. I were like... I were kicking myself after. I thought I'd won. I thought I'd got fight.
Yeah.
I don't know what you got it down on, which shows you with points and that with it.
But I didn't write down points on that one.
But like I said, these are the things that just kind of on your record at end of dates how it looks at the time, innit? So when you look back on it, it'll show me as 15 losses, and you can pick these up and say, well, I thought it should have been better, but he's gone on it. But I do believe that I did beat Noel at that time.
So, obviously, after that then, mate, we got another draw with Brendan Ryan.
So, Brendan Ryan, I'll tell you who Brian Anderson refereed that in Manchester. But Brendan Ryan went on, and I'm sure he boxed at light heavyweight. So, if you can imagine at that time, I think I might have been about 10 stone.
Yeah.
When I fought Brendan. He actually, I had a really bad cut on top of my head.
Right.
Really bad cut. He elbowed me as I went underneath him, and he elbowed me in the head, and I had quite a bit of blood on my face and stuff. But that fight, I believe I'd won.
Right.
And I think it was Brian, again, trying to seem to be a bit fair, where he gives it as a draw, unfortunately.
It seems like you had a couple of bad ends up draws, haven't you, mate? Yeah, really. Yeah. That record
And I've got an excuse for each one.
That record has looked a little bit more smarter, mate,
Better
wouldn't it?
another 5 on it, wouldn't it?
Yeah, definitely, mate. But that's big cut-out head, though, mate. That can't be nice to handle, mate, that.
How often are you fighting at this point, then?
So in that season, when I look at it, if between 90 and 91 and 92, I were probably having... I won at busiest fighters at time on that. I remember somebody actually saying that. I think I were having 12, 13 a season, 12. So I were averaging one a month, which at that time, you know what I mean, it were...
it's impressive, that, mate.
It's not bad, is it? I mean, you don't get too much of it these days, do you, really? It's a bit far and few between, isn't it, really?
No, you get a few road warriors, you know, we're out and about, but like you say, that's impressive back in them days, mate.
Back early on like that.
And it's very good that Scarfe mentioned that, really, mate, to be honest. Cause
we're going to say, we always are with your weight and that then as well.
Yeah, I never really had a trouble making weight. I was always training, always in gym, but never, I could have said, like road work and stuff, never really did. I was in gym and I was keeping fit, never had a problem with my weight, but should have done more in the way of like me running and road work, and there were different fitness levels, weren't there?
Yeah.
I never knew about like nutrition back in the day, and I'm sure like one or two of, like, I know as Glyn mentioned it before in, and I trained with Glyn, and we didn't know about nutrition. I thought I was swimming channel eating scrambled eggs and toast, and do you know, every now and again, but diet and stuff were never heard of. And then so boxing at York Hall, Bethnal Green. So York Hall, but it's got a bath there. That's York Hall Baths, isn't it? So it has got a steam room.
Yeah.
So I remember going down there to fight, being a few pound overweight, but you're fighting kids who are what we call flyers.
Yeah.
Decent kids. You're up against it, and then you're having to then. I've had them where they've said, no, you're gonna have to get in. You're gonna have to make weight for a couple of pound, and it's like, and then you're in steam room, and then. Just one of them. And then I look back on that, you shouldn't do it. You wouldn't do it now. So, yeah, was always okay with my weight in certain aspects. But like I said, never knew about nutrition, and probably just doing sparring and being in gym, but could have done more like road work and, you know, get that fitness level. There's all different things in nowadays with fitness and stuff. And
yeah, but like I said back then, mate, it wasn't as important, was it?
No.
You know what I mean, now it's nailed into fight, isn't it, to keep this?
You've got to have it, haven't you?
You know, and if you do want any course, you've got to tell them, right, if you need something faster, you know, fast release, should be in this, go do this. And, you know, back in them days, it wasn't the same, mate, was it? So
yeah, I'm probably eating better now than I do when than I did then. Back in the day, do you know what I mean?
You live and learn, mate.
Yeah,
you live and learn. So after that then, mate, we had back-to-back wins against Michael Close on points, mate.
Yeah, but I think... that were close and all, because I think probably within about 2 or 3 weeks, I think we're in. I beat him twice, like.
No, back to back, I've got here, like, mate.
Yeah, yeah. He were a good fighter, Mike. He were a bit small, quite short guy, and I just got range on him, and I beat him twice with it and that. But yeah. Yeah, that kind of set things going a little bit. Gives you that bit of confidence.
It did, mate. A last little run you went on then as well, because also you went in with another top journeyman as well. Not really mentioned him very much, but you went in with Barry North, didn't you, as well?
Barry North, yeah, you were a tough kid.
Note?
Yeah, he were. He were Barry North, yeah.
That were on points, wasn't it?
Yeah, it were. I don't remember much about him, if I'm honest with you, Barry North, but... just know, probably went through it on points with him.
Steady win.
Steady
night's work, mate. You know, no danger.
Yeah.
He'd come to do a job, and that's what he'd done.
Yeah, and then beat him, yeah.
But we were a decent journeyman as well in his time with Barry, back in them days as well. So, but obviously after that as well, you had a couple of losses after that, mate. Both on points. Neil Foran and Terry Collins.
So the Neil Foran fight is obviously Steve Foran's brother.
Yes.
So... he were a great amateur. So they were the ABA champions and stuff. So these were like the guys coming through who were... He was solid. I mean, when I fought Neil, I ended up doing 6 rounds with Neil.
Yeah.
Which I think I was lucky getting to them 6 rounds. He caught me with a body shot, and it was one of them where it were...
A sickener.
You felt it. And you know when you're in there and it's like... you get whacked anywhere else, like, and you can still feel it. But he caught me with a great body shot, and he was a solid kid, really solid. So yeah, I was up against it with Neil Ferran at that time, but I survived with him.
Wasn't it best you went in with, mate, would you say? Or wasn't it surprised you went in with? Or?
I would have said that I think Neil at the time were probably, I don't know if they rated Neil better than Steve at the time, I'm not sure, with the brothers, but but I think he would up there. He would up there with the with some of them top flight guys who are boxed.
But the next fighter after that, mate, so Thornhill seemed like a tough kid.
Yeah.
I'm glad I wrote him down now, mate.
Definitely.
You said you just fought another tough kid as well after that. I mean, it's a strange name, this. Mohammed Lovelock.
Mohammed Lovelock, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think Mohammed were a bit of he were a tough
I put here in brackets
fighter,
tough.
mate. Yeah.
Right, because he were around for a while, and his record, I wrote his record down as well. It was quite a similar-ish one to you, mate. He won 13, lost 27 and drew 3.
Yeah.
So, and I thought, I just wrote in brackets, I'm going to ask you, was he tough?
Yeah, he were, but I must admit, I trained for that fight, and I trained hard for that fight, because he beat Glyn Rhodes for Central Area title.
Right.
Rhodes, he should have beat him. Glyn should have beat him. And Glyn he didn't train for that fight. There's a few things into that why Glyn didn't win him. But that were at City Hall, I think, that one. I trained hard for that fight, and I went out, best shape I've been in. Honestly. I was running, I was training, and I felt fantastic, and I went out and I boxed his head off. And I thought at first I was going to stop him in second round. I caught him with a flurry, but he was a tough kid.
Yeah. Very
tough kid. And I did. I got win on him. I outboxed him. He couldn't hit me. I've got it on video, that one. And all. It's one of them. A guy called Steve Oldsworth who used to do all videoing. He used to do a lot of videos for pros around country, travel all over, Steve, which were great because you know what I mean. You could get your fight on video back in there. And then a gentleman called Eric Guy, who sadly passed away, Eric, but he was another character who used to do a lot of videos, a lot of filming, and he put some of them on DVD, which were great. But he was same again, similar to Steve. He used to travel around, and if you were down in London or down south, Eric were usually the one who'd video you down there. Do you know what I mean? Which were great, but.
Yeah, they're good memories to have, though, aren't they? Them,
yeah.
Mate?
The only thing is, they all used to pop up when I lost.
Yeah,
they were never recording me wins.
No, definitely
not that there were many of them, but
a number of journeymen we've had in here, and that says, "I fought so and so, and I absolutely battered shit out of him in the first round." And it looks on YouTube; it only shows it second, third, and fourth round. They're up first and on.
Yeah, that's about the usual case, isn't it? It's about right.
So, Mohammed Lovelock, like I thought, was tough. I mean, that started a run of three wins in a row you got there. So that counteracts really, like you were saying, you're in the best shape of your life then.
Yeah.
So you must have been in a bit of a purple patch then, mate, as well. Because also in that time, it says here one TKO against Brian Cullen as well, mate.
See, Brian Cullen were a tough...
I know.
Were a very tough kid. Do you know that fight as well, what happened? That were an 8-round fight, that. And I went out and I felt great.
Yeah.
I didn't even know I'd actually knocked him out.
Ah.
So that was punch what I threw. And Brendan, he even said to me, he went, "You didn't even know you'd hit him." And he knew straight away. But he went, and then Brian Cullen says, he come in changing rooms after Brian, and he says, "I can't believe it." He says, "That's the hardest I've ever been hit." And I weren't a puncher. It was just, I think it was just timing of it.
Yeah.
And Brendan, and in cuttings it says, Brendan says, best punch I've ever seen, which is great from Brendan. Do you know what I mean? And Brendan in there saying things like that, and he says Windle throws an overhand right, and he catches Cullen, and then and it was in Boxing News, I think, or something like that.
A good win to have that, mate.
It were a good win. And now we're over at Monk's first round. That were it. Do you know what I mean? Didn't have to go 8, and you got paid.
Oh God, yeah, definitely, mate. Yeah, nice to get an early night in it.
Yeah, he were a tough kid. I think that don't do Brian justice because I know he was a tough kid.
I thought he was a tough kid,
From Ireland, I think originally. I'm thinking Cullen Brian.
He was, and I thought it was a good win to get that, mate. With a TKO. But again, you got another good one after that on your third in a row. I mean, I'm terrible with pronouncing names. I must have said it 100 times on this podcast. Yeah. But you fought Bernard McConaughey, and you were the only person in his career to beat him, weren't you?
So you were an Irish international fighter, Bernard. we're good mates on Facebook. I've seen, he's a good friend of mine on Facebook as such. You know what I mean? I keep in touch and it's great. That were one I shouldn't have won because that were at Albert Hall.
Right.
So you're up against it. You're fighting local kid who they're expecting big things from his pedigree.
Yeah.
And I got in and I boxed, 8 run, and I felt great. And I boxed he couldn't catch me, and I outpointed him and got a deserved win against him.
Yeah. Did you expect to get your hand raised on that night?
No. I suppose I probably didn't. But when I got in there, it just kind of all clicked into place, and it was just an easy win for me. Well, probably looking back of it, I've got it on. It is on video again. It's another one, which is good. But it was good to get that win. When you look at his pedigree.
Yeah, I mean, he did get revenge on you, didn't he?
He did get his revenge, but that were in Belfast. So I went back to his hometown dinner. Belfast, not Kingshall, there's another one. Anyway, boxed him, and he beat me. He stopped me, but I think the stoppage were premature. He couldn't wait to jump in.
No.
He caught me, but it weren't. I were up, and I were complaining to the referee, and we waved it over. I think that were about 5th round or something like that, weren't it?
Yeah, I've got it down here. I've got, it says
Ulster Hall in Belfast.
Right.
There we are.
Yeah, but it says here TKO round 5.
Yeah.
But as we know, sometimes TKO don't mean that people are sparked out, do they?
No. He were fired up for that, though, for his revenge.
Oh, God, yeah. I mean, you took his own, mate.
Yeah, fair play to him. They were a good crowd there and all that night.
Yeah, so obviously expected big things from him, didn't they?
Yeah, they did, yeah.
What are you, a classy fighter?
Yeah, he were a decent. He were a good fighter. Yeah, and I think when you look, I've not looked back on his career, but as an amateur, but I'm sure they're Irish international and stuff, so he'll have got a good pedigree behind him.
Yeah, definitely a good person to share the ring with me, a good fight to share the ring with. On 2 occasions, and well done for being the only person to beat him, mate, in pros.
Which weren't bad, were it?
Sorry to mention that, Burnham, mate, but I'm sure.
I'm sure he'll smile when he sees you.
We'll give him a shout out for that. And then after that, mate, we had a draw with Johnny Walker, mate.
Yeah, that was a strange one. Another draw there where I don't think much in it. We had a bit of a toe-to-toe, but what I've got on film when you see it, I believe I think I got beaten on him. Yeah.
But you see, like you said, at this time, you were going through a really, really good patch, weren't you?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, people must have been looking at your record then and thinking, he's picking up some good wins here.
Yeah.
Because obviously after that, that's when you fought Mulcahy second time after that and you beat him. And you said you were feeling fresh, didn't you?
Yeah, feeling better.
And you also bet Andy Robbins as well on points.
Now, you were a tough kid from Wales, Andy Robbins.
Yes.
Very tough. He actually, he put me down. That were at City Hall, so that were on me. I think we're on one at Johnny Nelson undercar or something like that, I think, City Hall. And he were a tough kid, I think, from Swansea. But I did outpoint him, just got it on point. Yeah. And I probably just nicked that one as well. We're being hometown kid, because he just kept coming forward. I just hit run and got through it like.
But like I said, we started a really good run.
Yeah.
I mean, your record started. I mean, if you look at your record on box rate, Wayne, it's like it goes red, then it turns green.
Yeah.
Quite a lot.
Yeah.
And then towards end,
back to red.
You know, but at the time when you fought obviously Robbins and people like that, and like I said, it was a good little run you were on there, mate.
Yeah,
people must have been taking note.
Yeah, I suppose they were. And I felt confident then. It gives you that extra bit of boost.
Did you feel like?
Yeah, I suppose you felt. It was strange even then having wins like that. I suppose you don't know what's coming next. It was just taking it fight by fight, never thinking too far ahead of what were happening or anything like that. Really, you just used to take it as it come.
Yeah,
whatever they'd lined up for you, I suppose.
I mean, after that, you finally got. It says here you lost to Michael Driscoll by KO at York Hall here.
So Mickey Driscoll,
yeah,
and he fought for British title. Yeah. Mickey Driscoll, did it? And I bumped into him actually last year down Meadowhall.
Did I give him money for beating him?
A few years. I should have done.
I should have digged him.
I did.
Only joking, Mickey.
I know. He was a good fighter. He were a good fighter. I know I were up against it with him, but in first 3 rounds, he was just pressuring me. But I caught him with some decent shots, and he just nicked me. He caught me. I got a cut, so they stopped me on cut. and that were it. But I'm not saying I'd have beat him because he was a good fighter.
Yeah.
And he's gone on, I think he was training, and reason I saw him when he were in local area, he's been training a lot of guys down at the international sports in Sheffield. So he was training Olympic team, I believe, or Great Britain team.
Yeah.
That's what he was training, which is great. So he's still been back.
I thought he went on for British.
Helping in game, hasn't he, still?
Well, he's got a lot to pass on, mate. Like yourself, mate. You should do as well, mate. You've got a lot to pass on as well. But yeah, did you rate Mickey then?
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, you could tell he was a good kid. I mean, probably had a good amateur career and all.
Do you like the York Hall?
Yeah, I boxed here a couple of times.
I know. Did you like it or didn't you like it?
I don't know. It was a good, strange atmosphere though. You were up against it because I fought a couple of local lads down there. So Mickey Driscoll had a good following. I think it was your call with Mickey Driscoll, weren't it? And also Terry Collins. I think Terry Collins was your call. That were an interesting one. I did a bit of showboating with Terry Collins one, and he were booing and he didn't like it.
So yeah, Mickey were obviously top fighter to be in with, mate.
Yeah, he were.
And a bit like Mr. Gargano, there's somebody I've got to mention. The Warrior himself, Carl Taylor.
Yeah.
Warrior. 165 fights that guy had.
Yeah, he were rough
and ready.
Rough and ready, definitely. Forgot about that one, you know.
I didn't. Yeah. You weren't going to get away with that one.
Were that an 8-rounder?
I'm not sure. But you lost.
I lost on points to him, didn't I?
Yeah.
Yeah, he knew every trick in book, that fella.
He's not surprised with that record.
Yeah. What did he have?
165.
165 fights. Yeah, he would same. Turn up everywhere, fight anybody. And they always used to be ones I struggled against for some reason. But yeah, I don't remember much at fight. I just know it were a bit scrappy and tough, to be honest.
Were you one of them from Arves, Jim?
I don't think
he were from Birmingham.
I
think he were fighting out of Nobby Nobbs.
That's what I meant.
He were with Nobby Nobbs. He were
Nobby Nobbs. Yeah.
Yeah. He had a couple of guys. Nobby Nobbs. Norman Darley. Another one. Journeyman. I think he beat me twice, I think.
I noticed you got a lot of losses against these guys, Wayne.
And then that's what I found. That's what probably surprised me. Is like people who you'd expect I might get in and I'd beat.
Yeah.
What people who were beating me.
Yeah.
And I found it like with Norman. I'd got beaten in Norman and it was like, but he beat me. He beat me a couple of times and it's frustrating. But at the end of the day, that was it. That was a decision.
But yeah, I thought what you see is what you got with Carl. I mean, he was tough as they come into, mate. And like I said, Scarfe is right. I think he was Nobby's man.
Yeah.
So I remember.
He's got to have been if you were down from Birmingham at that time.
Yeah.
He's got
from
to
what
have
I can remember, I think he were in Birmingham when I boxed him. I'm not too sure where it says on my record where I actually did fight him. But he were a good, tough kid.
Well, maybe it gives you a kick up backside, that, mate, because you come back after that with a couple of stoppage wins, mate, against a couple of away fighters.
Yeah.
Both stoppages against Mark Anthony. Was it Mark Anthony?
Yeah, Mark Anthony were in Mansfield.
Yeah,
I remember
and Peter
that.
Roberts as well.
Mansfield Leisure Centre with Mark Anthony. That was a first round stoppage.
Yeah.
I psyched myself up for that fight and just got on with it. And that was on Johnny Nelson undercard. I think Johnny boxed the topping bill that night on Leisure Centre in Mansfield. But he was a tough kid. Like I said,
not many stopped him.
They didn't, Mark Anthony, and he caused problems. And I knew that when I took fight and when I were up against it. And I just kind of, I'm going to get in there. I'm not going to box. And Brendan would be saying, no, just... And I said, and I went out there with that in my mind and I stopped him in first round. And it were a great stoppage for me. It were good.
Yeah, it's always nice to go. I mean, it's not nice for other people.
Not nice for other kids. Well, we know that, nice. And I've been on receiving end myself.
Yeah, I think every fighter likes a nice stoppage on the record.
Yeah.
But like I said, also Peter Roberts as well, mate. So you come back from that Carl Taylor loss quite well, mate.
Yeah, well, and then Pete Roberts, that were for area title, so Central area. So that were great. That coming back off that,
big achievement.
Probably my best one, to be honest, because that meant a lot to me. That and a lot of Jim were there to watch me fight as well. So you got Errol Graham, Johnny Nelson, Glim Rhodes, they were all there. Naz were here, Ryan Rhodes. So Naz in when young lad at the time, like, but yeah, they were there to support me, and that were good to win that.
Extra special then, mate.
Yeah, it felt good, and then to be area champion. And then that's when you kind of had a bit of belief that, do you know what? And in an interview, I'm saying to him, I'd like a Lonsdale belt. I'd like to fight for a British title. Do you know what I mean? So that's when you start talking things like that.
But like you said,
have a bit of belief that you could do it.
But like you said earlier, mate, as well, you won that belt, and you weren't far off it, mate.
No.
You weren't far off it at all.
No, you were closer than you think sometimes, I suppose, at the end of the day. But
so after that, though, mate,
I know
this is where it starts getting a bit tough, innit?
I know it all starts.
What a warrior he turned out to be, mate. I mean, we've talked about him earlier on. We went for a coffee, but you went in with George Scott, didn't you? What a fighter he was.
I mean, I didn't even realise who I were actually fighting at the time. So what happened with that? I got called to say it was on Chris Eubank, Michael Watson undercard at White Hart Lane. So it's like, it don't get much bigger, does it?
No.
At that time. And Eubank Watson. Obviously unfortunate what happened with that, but we're all aware with what happened with Michael Watson and stuff. But at that time, I take fight, and then I said, I think, just trying to discuss who I'm actually boxing, and they said to me, he's from Sweden. So I'm thinking, we've not got many fighters in Sweden coming out of there who's like decent and stuff. But it was only once I got down to actual weighing that then I start realising who I'm actually fighting, because then you've got Swedish television down there wanting to do an interview. And I'm thinking, well, why is Swedish television wanting to interview me? And then when he said, how do you feel fighting George Scott? So they start doing an interview, and then he starts saying to me, Olympic silver medalist. And I'm thinking, well, if he's Olympic silver medalist, he's come second to gold, hasn't he? Because he's been in final, hasn't he? So he's been in an Olympic final. So they're not messing about. And also the guys who he's come over with, Rhodesy again. Glenn knows the guy who he's with, because they're out at 5th Street Gym from Miami. So originally, he's training at that time with Angelo Dundee's campus.
Wow.
And you don't get better trainers around at that time than Angelo Dundee, do you?
You were the best, wasn't he?
So, yeah, and then in train best in the world, hasn't he? And then so you've got a fighter who's an Olympic silver medalist coming over on undercard to Eubank Watson, and I'm fighting him. So, yeah. Anyway, he beat me in 2 rounds. But once I got down there, taught myself how to fight, and really, I just nodded it and just...
Your head's what in it, were it?
But the guy was like, whether I could have survived, it was a 4-rounder, whether I could have managed and really pulling out resources and just got through 4 rounds or not. But guy'd have had beating on me. He would have like what you call a pedigree, weren't he? He were like top flight.
Were he strong and all?
Strong.
Yeah.
Strong, fast, and very focused and aggressive.
I can remember seeing him fight as well, mate. And
yeah. And you could see that. I think a lot of people could see that. I wouldn't above me head.
We come out with the old thingy when they announced your name, though, didn't they, mate? Like, nice bow coming into the middle,
that would
mate.
be Sugar Ray Leonard, that.
Quality, that, you know, mate.
It didn't help me, though, did it?
I
don't think it deterred him, did it, when he saw it, like, as if we were going to put him off. But Marcus MacDonald actually refereed us that night. Now, Marcus MacDonald, he never really liked my style.
Right.
And Marcus were on my case, trying to... You know what I mean? He broke us up a few times, clinches and stuff. And he kind of gave me a bit of a dressing down. And things like that just break your concentration. But it is what it is. And I accept that. But at the end of the day, I were up against it.
Yeah. After that, mate, you had a little back-to-back wins against Kevin Toomey, didn't you?
Yeah, Kev Toomey, yeah. So I beat Kev Toomey.
It's these fighters I like to mention because people forget about it.
Yeah, Kev was probably same as me, weren't he, Kev? Yeah. He'd boxed around country and, same again, journeyman, boxed wherever he could. So I beat him. I think it was Sheffield City Hall, that one, Mick Toomey. And then he actually beat me in return, which were then for me defending my area title. And I got disqualified.
That's why I've got here. That's why the reason I mentioned
it. Now that were same again. Mickey Van refereed that fight. So Mickey Van, as we all know, world-class referee, obviously not around refereeing at the minute. He disqualified me saying that I hit him while he were down. So what happened were, I took the fight quite lightly because I'd beat him before. So I'd probably not trained the best and thought, just getting in there, I'm going to beat him anyway. and he started catching me, and I would say he were edging it. He were edging fight. Going into that 8th round, and Brendan said, listen, you need to stop him. And I went out with intention of trying to stop him, to beat him. And I did. And I caught him, and he'd gone. And then what happened? I caught him with a right hand, and as I come back with left, he'd gone down on one knee. And as I come back with left hook, I caught him while he were on canvas. But he was down on one knee.
Right.
Mickey Van didn't hesitate. They were all going mad in corner. He ummed and ahed. You looked like he thought, and then that's it, he made his mind up, and he went and disqualified me.
Right.
Which, I don't know. No. So it'd have been nice to have that defence and win it, which would have then put me would have put me up in rankings, which would have been great. Winning area title and then defending it, then you know how that leads on, doesn't it?
Like they always say, it's one thing winning it, but it's defending it.
Defending it after it. But unfortunately, that went, so they disqualified me and didn't pay me.
Well, I see. Well, we got a message not long ago, didn't we, from Lee Murter, didn't we?
Oh, yeah.
Saying that he's got, he says, I've got a do coming up in Leeds in January, if you fancy coming. And guess who's there? Mickey Van. So you want me to give it a headlock for you and ask why disqualified and get a pint out of him?
Please ask him.
Right, Scarfe.
Because I think week before, he refereed Bruno. And Bruno did exactly the same. I can't remember who Bruno fought now, but Bruno, there's a guy, it's obviously a bit here on YouTube, you see it. It's about a week or two before I fought, and then he gets caught on ropes, the guy, and Bruno hits him. And I think Brendan actually mentioned that in my appeal meeting. Right. So you had to appeal it then.
Yeah.
You know, I did get paid in end.
Yes.
But they withheld your purse when you got disqualified.
Still do now.
And then you have to go and face board, don't you? So, but I remember going across to Manchester and have to justify myself, like why I ended up stopping fight.
Well, we'll have to have a word with old Vanny in January.
So tell him when you see him.
I'll tell him you got paid, though. You got paid, though, didn't you?
I got paid.
Good lad. Good appeal to have, mate.
Yeah.
So, we've got to mention it, mate, after that. There's no doubt about it. Top quality fighter. I think when I mention his name, Scarfe will say, I know that name as well. Round a long time. We've seen him in Sky Sports when we were going out around time. We were in his teenage years and up.
Can't remember that.
Mr. Billy Schwer.
No, Billy Schwer.
What a warrior.
See, that were another one where, I mean, when that come round, I were working 12-hour days and nights. It's a steelworks. Because my son had just been born. I think if you look at year with that, we're at 1992, 93. So I just got a young kid, and we're trying to make ends meet working in steelworks. Yeah. And I had to get time off to tell him. I remember taking poster in to show Gaffer, I'm fighting a fella called Billy Schwer down in Luton. So on his home turf. And it were a sellout, and he were a ticket seller. Yeah. And he were a flyer.
Well, that early on in his career, that then?
So he'd had 17 fights unbeaten then.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So it were one of them. You were up against it. But, again, travel down on day for fight. And it's horrible to kind of turn around and saying it, but I'm not making excuses. I don't think I probably would have beat him. He were one of them again, pedigree. That was his job. Yeah. All he were doing was training and fighting, weren't he? But I think I'd got a slight bit of weight on him at time. I were bit bigger than him.
Yeah.
When I got in there, I was surprised actually. And I think it was with Mickey Duff at the time. But when he hit me, it don't please me to say it, but he didn't catch me. Like people thought or led to believe at that time. I didn't want to be in there because I travelled down all that day. We were hanging around. And that when them fights, when you actually weighed in on day, you know, like. And then we weighed in on day, and then we went to somewhere. Brendan had a relative near Luton, and then we went to stay at this house. And I remember being in this a relative of Brendan's, and he said, "Do you want to go up to bed and try and have a sleep?" And he says, "Before fight," and I mean, I'm fighting a kid here who's like undefeated, and he beats me first round. And Mickey Duff, first thing Mickey Duff did, he come running over and got hold of my face and looked in my eyes. Mickey weren't daft; he knew exactly what, you know what I mean. Mickey looked at me as he'd seen enough fighters in his time, hadn't he? You couldn't put the Lord his eyes.
No.
But yeah, that was it. I come out of that one.
Yeah.
And Billy went on to do what he did. And what a nice kid. And do you know, when you look at the stuff he does, what I see on Facebook with some of the stuff he does with his mental health things, it's great. It's great to see in it. Do you know? And And he did. He was fantastic. So I've no shame losing to him. No shame whatsoever. Like
most certainly shouldn't, mate. As well. Great fighter to be in with. Just what meant to be, mate.
No. Well, after me, he fought Carl Crook and won British title. So he beat me and then beat Carl Crook for British title. So went on.
We're all down to you then, Wayne.
We're
really,
all down to me, weren't it?
That's all down to you, mate.
That's what spurred him on.
All that hard work that I did down going down Luton, that's what spurred on to British title, mate.
I know.
But I say it a few times today. Proud person to be me, mate. Well done.
Yeah,
for that.
you were a good kid,
and another good fighter after that as well, mate. Who he lost on points to, and I like to watch him. Gary Thornhill, mate.
He were tough.
Yes, I used to like watching Gary.
He were a tough nut. I tell you what, that was like a Rocky fight because what happened is when I boxed him, I went back to the corner and I said to Brendan, he'd put me down. I'd gone down, and I said to Brendan, right, I said, I'm not going down again. And Brendan looked at me and went, no problem. But it went to laugh. And Brendan said to me, Windle, he says he was like someone out of a Rocky fight, like a Rocky film when I'm not going down no more, talking like that. And I just went out there and like kind of hit, run, box, and got through points. But he was a tough kid, him. He went on to fight for British title, didn't he?
Certainly did, mate. He was a good fighter.
He were, weren't he?
You went in with a few decent fighters, mate, like I said.
Yeah.
You went in some classics towards him, mate, didn't you?
Yeah.
I mean, you also went in, you lost to David Anderson as well, mate.
See,
what happened there?
I think we're in Cardiff or something down here, a Cardiff ice rink. Just one of them where just not fancying it and then talking yourself out at fight. I talked myself out, lack of confidence in my ability. People in gym would say to me, I remember going down there with a few guys who were training in gym, a couple of lads from Wales and all, and we went down there. And I think they were surprised at our box to think, I can't believe you do what you do in gym and you're a different fighter. So it's like I taught myself out at fight because Dave Anderson were a good kid. So I'm getting down there and think, I'm up against it. Do you know what I mean? And it's wrong, innit? And in my mind, but if I'd have put my mind to it, I'm not saying I could have beat him, but I don't know.
But it's tough. Every fighter has that mental block at times where they're not up for it. Every fighter has it, mate. And it's nothing to be ashamed of. And like you said, it just seems like they'd want in it at that time, mate. But one fighter who I do like, and you thought he wanted his debut, so that's why I put him down. You thought Paul Samuels on his debut, didn't you?
And then Paul Samuels, same again. What we call a bit of a flyer, weren't he?
Yeah.
He worked Calzaki gym.
Yeah.
So Enzo were training him. Just flyer, caught me solid shot. Just absolutely caught me with a perler. Do you know what I mean? It was one of them. I was just in above my head. Guy having his first pro fight and all.
But like you said, when I saw that, I wouldn't have fancied putting him in against thee, mate, for so much for a bit of confidence. I
know. Well, I remember John saying to me, Brendan's son, he's tall and rangy, but well, he weren't tall and rangy when I got in with him, was he?
No.
He would. No, he meant business, and fair play to him.
It's a guy I'd love to meet, is Paul.
But he again fought British title, didn't he?
Yeah.
Did he win? Did he become British champion?
I don't think he did.
Fought for British title, didn't he? I think he got stopped in British.
We always mention this on the show. He'll always be remembered for his cello render double knockdown, wouldn't they?
That's right. Yeah, exactly. Double knockdown.
Double knockdown. I'll remember for that, wouldn't he?
When they both went down and got up for a count. Did he come back? Did he beat the count?
You know what? I think he lost that fight.
He did, didn't he? Was that for British title?
I'm not sure. I'm not going to... No comment.
Yeah.
Since when... Have you seen who I interview, Wayne? I mean, do I look like I look at British titles?
True.
But no, I know he definitely fought for British title, didn't he?
Yeah.
It's someone I like to speak to, Paul, actually.
Yeah.
Seems a nice guy. But obviously, to put him in on your debut, mate, they must have fancied him at the time.
Yeah.
Because I wouldn't have fancied going in with him on my debut, especially your record, who you've been in with. After that, though, mate, you've got 4 Road Warriors on your record here, right? Norman De Harley.
Norman Darley, yeah.
Yep. Tony Foster and another legend in Brian Coleman you went in with.
Yeah.
Any of them 3 stick out?
Tony, see, the Tony Foster one, I think Tony were a decent kid. I remember taking that fight with Tony. I beat him on points, and he were actually... Glenn Rhodes were in his corner.
Were he?
Rhodesy went in his corner, traitor.
That's right. That's 4 times I've ticked him for being a bastard on this episode, Rhodesy.
Great, innit? But I think he was struggling with cornermen. Tony.
Yeah.
And Glyn stepped in. I don't know why Glyn were here that night. Anyway, cut long story short, he was in his corner. And I beat him. Kind of fired me up a bit to beat him. But I boxed all right that night and got a win over him. But he'd had some good wins, Tony.
Yeah.
I think, did he fight again? Another one, British champion.
Maybe.
Bantamweight.
I just know you're a road warrior.
British you were, weren't
You stopped Dean Bramall held as well, didn't you?
Yeah.
Not many did that, you know.
That was for light welterweight title.
Your second time.
No, they didn't. And that was it. And I found
your second time, yeah.
I know, I found it easy. But he'd caused a lot of people problems, hadn't he? And he were a proper journeyman out there, weren't he, around. And I think I stopped him in 4th round.
And that will have been one of his world title fights, that, you know.
Yeah.
Because if a journeyman ever gets a chance to win that, it's massive.
Yeah.
And
definitely, yeah.
So, you know, but he were a tough nut.
Yeah, he were tough. And I just found it, I trained. Same again, where it got that in my mind that I wanted to win that. I trained hard and I got in there and it just come together. Yeah,
some top fighters in there, mate. And then I'm going towards back end of your career, mate, when it went a bit down again after that.
Yeah.
But Tanvir Ahmed, were he a good fighter?
Yeah, I think he were, and I think they were a bit shocked at what it actually took on when he got me, because I think they just thought it was going to be a nice, easy warm-up for him. But I had him on canvas. So I put him down. I thought I'd won fight. Close, but I'd won it. And they get it him. And a lot of crowd booed. Decision. And then he went on to fight for a British title. So again, one of them.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's how it works, isn't it?
Again, it's just them fine margins, mate.
Yeah, they are fine margins, isn't it?
Yeah, real fine margins.
End at night, end at day, he got the decision. So yeah.
Did that deflate you a little bit after that, mate? Did you feel like the end were near at the time then? Or?
No. I suppose it were. I don't know. It just kind of, like I said, I used to take every fight as it come. I never thought that far ahead. So. I suppose it did affect your confidence in a bit. Or you lose a bit of faith in game that, hang on, I'm winning these, or I'm drawing, I'm not getting decision when I draw. I'm not, do you know what I mean? It's close, I'm not getting it. So I suppose it does have that bit of a knock-on effect. But I just met my wife at that time.
Yeah, well, they change a lot,
don't they? They change a lot, don't they? So I just met, and that kind of...
For the good, though, as well.
Definitely. Oh, definitely. Definitely for the good. But it just kind of changes your thought process when you're in that game. And then coming back from, you've got a few lumps and bumps here and there, you're going to sleep at night, you've got a headache and stuff, and then somebody actually who cares about you saying to you, are you sure you want to be doing this? And then it starts making you think, well, do I really want to be doing this? And then with decisions, and you'll see, I think, on these last few, like what you've got, probably.
I mean, they went in there, we'll just touch towards the end, mate. I mean, you went in and you lost some points to Michael Melvin, didn't you?
Midlands area champion.
Yes.
And he was a tough kid. So I did points with him, but he beat me. He beat me hands down with that one. I couldn't say it were close.
And then obviously he finished off with Norman De Harley.
And then Darley.
You lost that, didn't you?
And do you know what the thing is? And Brendan always used to say, never try and... He said to me after, don't go out on a loss. In a way. Do you know what I mean? Don't go out on a loss. And it's a shame I did. And especially, and no disrespect to Norman, but I thought I was better than that.
Yeah.
To leave it there, and that were the thing, and that's kind of when I finished, and just lost that. And I made a few kind of trips back to the gym, tried to and trained again, and felt pretty good. But then that was it. I suppose it had come to a bit of an end.
Well, come to an end or not, mate, I think you can say that is an absolute cracking career, mate. You've had some great experiences.
Yeah, definitely.
And, I know you say sometimes you like to go back, but I won't have any regrets, mate. I think you've been some cracking fighters.
Yeah.
I think little things that have gone your way, maybe that British title.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If there was an English title around at that time, you've probably got that English title short. I mean, they weren't around then, were they?
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's it, isn't it? These titles these days are this English title. We never know anything like that when I were younger, like, but... you never know, do you? But I look back on it, and all I've got is fond memories. And old fighters who I've fought, all that respect you have for them and stuff like that. And Brendan, and at that time, all of that kind of, I was around at a great time in that gym. and saw them all come through. Kelbrook, Ryan Rhodes, Nazim Ahmed, the list goes on. And it was great to be around at that time to see them all come through. And I saw them all come through as kids to like develop into what they did and put Sheffield and Ingle Gym on map, didn't they?
And they did. And you did a part of that well, because I think you winning, the area title will have mean just as much to Brendan as Naz winning the world title, mate. It really would have done.
It will have done, Well, I remember Errol Graham. Errol Graham got beat with Julian Jackson on the Saturday or Friday it was in Spain, and on Monday and Tuesday, probably one of them days, we were in York Hall, me and Brendan. So it was there with world title, which had just been snatched out of Errol's hands, unfortunately, and then next, me and Brendan are down York Hall. So he's one of them, innit? It's like, that's how it worked with boxing.
Yeah. Well, all I can say, mate, is I think that's a great place to end it there, mate, and thank you so much for coming on, Wayne.
No,
it's been an absolute pleasure.
Brilliant. I've really enjoyed it. Thanks ever so much. Great stuff, and hopefully see you both again soon.
Oh, yeah, there's a few want to come for pub golf, mate. You're more than happy to join us.
We'll definitely have some of that.
Well, yeah, let's do it, mate.
Cheers.
Right, all the best, buddy.
Mate.
Thanks for coming on.
Thank you very much.
The Journeyman Cave is produced by James Proud. Music by Ryan Carrier. Special thanks to Rhythm Inc. Studios for hosting. All views expressed are of the guests only. The Journeyman Cave and host bear no responsibility for any opinions given. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram and Twitter @The Journeyman Cave.